Hump live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. Always start out by saying that I know that time is a valuable thing, and for you to spend a little bit of yours with me is really greatly appreciated. So I always want to get that out of the way. First, welcome to you, Scott. How you doing? Always glad to have you here, sir. While we wait for more people to show up in the live stream here, let us make some adjustments. Yes, everything is looking good. Good to be here, guys. How is everybody doing this week? Um, Nothing major to report here while I wait for more people to show up in the live stream. I usually rant a little bit about what goes on here at Upstairs to Right Studio. Actually, nothing to really to report this week. Um, and that's always a good thing, actually, to tell you the truth. I'm starting to appreciate the downtime a little bit. Um, I will get to that video, guys. I know I want to put out that treble bleed video because I didn't go to Vindal. That one got pushed back, but I want to put that one out. James, welcome, sir. How you doing? Hello to you, Mr. Allmark. Welcome always. Thank you so much for showing up, guys. Good to see you, gentlemen. Yeah. So yeah, I want to get the treble bleed video out. I will do that. There's a final edit that I have to do on it because I don't like the sound quality of some of the sound samples I took, so I want to redo that. But that doesn't take much time. But yeah, we'll get to that. So that'll be possibly this Friday. I hope to release that. So look forward to that and our regular content on this channel. Um, where are we at? Well, tonight, uh, I want to try to bring in two things that I like a lot: pop culture and guitars. Very rarely can I find a subject that organically ties these together. It's not a forced thing. Idea or thought that I'm proposing tonight. Actually, as I go through it, you'll see that it actually kind of rhymes, actually, in a way. And as um, a pop culture reference, I wanted to start out tonight's live stream with a quote from Mr. George Lucas himself. And it's kind of where I got the idea in a way. It just shows the weirdness of my brain, how it works when I sit down and write these scripts for these live streams, or where I was coming from tonight. Because two things occurred. I heard this.
Anakin, kind of duplicating the Luke Skywalker role, but you see the echo of where it all is going to go. And instead of destroying the Death Star, he destroys the ship that controls the robots. Again, it's like poetry, so that they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.
So there, George Lucas is talking about how he was writing these scripts along the lines of things rhyming. Luke Skywalker destroying the Death Star, rhyming with his father Anakin as a boy destroying the Trade Federation droid control ship. And these themes, these rhyming themes, are something that I was thinking about. As you know, I am a writer, a producer, a composer, and sometimes I think about those things. And so I had that thought going on in my head. Hey, Katrina, how you doing? Welcome to you. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Welcome, welcome. We can see that, well, the second thing this week that struck me is the amount of videos about the new Snow White movie that appeared in my feed. Because I watch a lot of things that are involved in pop culture, not just guitars. I'm not that two-dimensional. I really think that that's why that happened, but I'm sure you guys have certainly at some point have heard about this movie. And it got me thinking with that it rhymes kind of thing and the playing out in my subconscious, that actually, this Snow White Hollywood flop has a lot in common. It rhymes a little bit with things that I've been discussing here on this channel about the guitar industry, actually, believe it or not. You're going to say to yourself, well, Mike, I'm going to pop my popcorn and sit down and see how you tie those two things together. But as I said, it's not a tenuous tie between these two. There actually is some severe rhyming going on. So I want to touch upon that tonight because I think that whenever we can tie in pop culture with guitars, that's a great audience. That's the kind of audience that I'd like to reach. I'd like to show how this isn't just one industry. For the guys who aren't interested in guitars who do watch this will let you know that what's happening in one industry is reflected in a lot of these major industries. Again, that rhyming that George Lucas was talking about in his writing actually occurs out there in the real world. Matty Two Hats, how you doing, sir? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you, sir. So, you know, Disney had a live action remake of their 1937 movie Snow White. And unfortunately for them, they had several factors that made it not an unwatchable movie, but a movie that people weren't exactly going to be lining up for. And I don't want to get into those things. What I want to do is really talk about how audience rejected it due to a lack of originality and forced messaging. And already, if you guys are paying attention, you can see where I'm going with this. Lack of originality, sound familiar? Forced messaging, okay? But audience rejected it due to those two things. Now, not only was Snow White in a long line of completely pointless remakes, in my opinion, they completely missed the appeal and the point of Snow White. And while making it, they missed the appeal as well of the original. They missed the point and the appeal. And I think that a lot of guitar manufacturers, if we can again bring in the George Lucas rhyming into this, in terms of what they've been doing of late, really echo that as well. Hollywood is struggling with reboots and nostalgia-driven products and projects. Reboots? So Epiphone comes out with a great guitar called 1959, Les Paul. And everybody buys that one up, and it's a pretty decent one. And then they say, you know what? We're going to come out with a reboot of that, We're going to reboot it with the Gibson headstock on it instead of the Epiphone one, right? And also the nostalgia, putting the 1959 in it is a nostalgia-driven project. The connection is the guitar business is making the same mistakes that the film industry is making, actually. Again, there is echoes of what the film industry seems to, for some reason, fail to understand about this audience that they're supposed to be entertaining. Instead, they choose to be proselytizing to. And who likes that? I'm going to pay for my own re-education? No. So people don't show up for that. But putting that issue aside, there are, again, some shades of similarity to that actually in the guitar industry, as I'm going to talk about tonight. Scott says, I'd love to see Disney's The Black Cauldron again. Yeah, man. That was a good one. I forgot about it. I said, man, that was an old one because I was a kid when that came out. Yeah, that was a good one. But the connection is that big brands are relying on the same old formulas rather than innovating. Again, I can put that back to the movie business in terms of what they're producing these days. Old formulas, not innovating. So, why does this matter to us musicians and gearheads? Well, Hollywood keeps rehashing the same ideas, just like guitar brands. I think I've sort of laid a brief case for that here. Let me get in a little bit more detail of that. Snow White, Indiana Jones, The Little Mermaid, relying on old IP instead of fresh ideas. And by the way, I will also point out in the case of all three of these, there was a lot of gender bending, a lot of playing down of heroes, a lot of things in there that turned people off. And instead of innovating and coming up with fresh ideas, studios assumed that name recognition would sell. But the audience really, really began to understand that these were uninspired cash grabs. And that's kind of obvious in the box office receipts that we've been seeing of late, especially pre and post pandemic. Now, there's a parallelist in the guitar world: reissues, signature models, and the new vintage inspired guitars. But how much is actually new? Reissues, well, that's Snow White. Signature models, that's Indiana Jones. And new vintage inspired guitars, well, that's The Little Mermaid. Okay? I mean, the correlation there is pretty strong. How much is actually new? Fender, Gibson, and PRs are making minor tweaks, but marketing them as major, innovations, and they're not. As a matter of fact, some guitars have devolved in the case of, again, like I said, if you're into a nice slab of rosewood, you may not be getting that even on some of the more pricier instruments, especially with Fender these days. Seamus O'Brien. Welcome, Seamus. So good to see you, sir. Welcome to the house tonight. This house is busting on the House of Mouse tonight a little bit, in a small way. How many times can we reissue a 59 Les Paul or 60 Strat before people tune out? Tune out, tone out, and drop out. If I can twist Timothy Leary's words a little bit there. There's just so many parallels there. And the reactions that we're seeing with the general movie, which is all of us, not all of us who go see movies play guitars, but some people in the movie theater are guitar players. In other words, we're all in this. And we can see that even in an industry related, music industry, movie industry, very related, but we can see the same kind of mistakes being made. We can still see the same kind of mistakes being made. Audiences and musicians are tired of paying for the same old thing, is really the subtitle of tonight's discussion. And Hollywood expects people to pay premium prices for the same stories. Sound familiar? Like I said, the parallels here are, pretty significant, I'd have to say. Again, like I said, this is not tenuous what I'm talking about here. You can see it. Rising ticket prices, rising guitar prices, streaming fees, the company that shall not be named, and what they did to me. You talk about, okay, I'll say Waves. People like that ilk, streaming fees, Waves, same friggin' thing. And declining interest in reboots. I don't think the 100th Jimmy Page edition Gibson guitar necessarily made put the company out of the red that year. They weren't exactly flying off the shelves, because the generation that would give trying to clean this one up tonight. The generation that would consider that to be of some significance is aging out. And they've already bought the other 99. I mean, or at least some of them. So the guitar industry, as I said, mirrors this. $3,000 custom shop reissues that are nearly identical to guitars from decades ago. I've said this before. I've seen custom shop $3,000 Strats that, in my opinion, are no better than some of the Tokais and Grecos that I've had through here. To be honest, you know, or some of the really nice Fenders from the '90s or the early 2000s. You know, with these prices skyrocketing, however, the features stay the same. Even to the absurd point where Gibson said, you know, we have found like the closest you're ever going to get to perfection in terms of humbuckers and capturing that PAF sound, whatever that is, because that's a moving target. And we're going to put it in a fancy velvet box, and we're going to charge you $1,000 for it. You know, we're going to give you a Star Wars hotel. We're going to charge you $5,000 a day. We're going to wrap it up in a nice fancy velvet, you know, cushiony box, but it's fluff. You know. Are we really getting better instruments? Are we just paying more for marketing? You know. Which, by the way, speaking of marketing, when you take a $270 million estimated to create film like Snow White, and you start adding on the marketing budget for that, which is usually double the cost of the total package up, you have to sit back when you're looking at these correlations. How much more for the marketing of this stuff are you paying for as well? How much of these raises and that they try to attribute to other market forces are actually just marketing? So there's that. Are musicians and gear buyers finally saying enough, like moviegoers seem to be doing recently? And I think the answer to that is maybe. I certainly think that we are becoming more aware of how we're being played. I think there's a lot of YouTube content, and YouTube is, you know, more dominant actually than streaming. You know, as I read a report, you know, more Gen X is watching YouTube than getting their information from YouTube. This could be a YouTube sponsored thing, but anyway, the point is that, you know, there's a lot of people that are calling stuff out. And you didn't have the mystique of things like you did when I was growing up, when there was really the newspaper, the TV, and word of mouth. And that's how you heard about things. And these days, you know, it's at the speed of how fast somebody can push send, actually, information these days. So movie goers, the general public, you know, have been informed and shown now that they were not made with the intent of entertaining, as I said, but with the intent of lecturing and proselytizing, and people didn't want to pay for that. Are guitar players going to be able to also say, hey, wait a minute, you know, anyway, let's see what Scott has to say. Paying more for marketing, yet most of, not all physical marketing has moved online and has gotten cheaper for companies in a lot of ways. Yeah, I know. They're charging more it's a classic business model. Oh, you know what? We can produce this widget for cheaper, but we can charge more for it. You know, we can increase our margins. And there's a point where you start putting that on the back of the consumer too much, where they just say no. And I think that the tariffs and these things that are occurring right now in our market could be the breaking point. Again, like I said, external forces sometimes, can cause tsunamis in unpredictable ways. But certainly, we are getting hipper to the fact that we're being marketed to, and sometimes it's not a great feeling. I'll give the example of that by the cost to produce it and then the marketing budgets. Well, actually, fortunately for the guitar market, these guys are cheapskates, so they do want to get away with the cheapest budget they can. But when you see a same day flood of reviews on the same instrument, pedal, guitar or whatever, then you know that there's marketing involved in that. And where maybe a few years ago that may have been like, oh, cool, let's think it out and let's see what he thinks about it, let's see what she thinks about it and go through that. But now it's become a soulless, marketing share grab, and it's just not happening. And it's so artificial. Again, flipping that back to the movies industry, same thing. Again, a soulless cash grab in the case of this Snow White movie. High-priced models are sitting in stores. I go to stores, and they're sitting so much so that, like I said, I was thinking about pivoting to higher-priced models, but they're kind of sitting right now. And it's the lower and mid-range ones that seem to be moving. So the secondhand market is thriving. And why is that? What was the last new guitar, by the way, that you guys saw that thrilled you? The last guitar that I saw that interested me, as I said before, just off the top of my head, was the Novo. I think those are kind of cool. But it doesn't excite me $4,000. Not even remotely close. And so it sits in the sidelines. Indie filmmakers and boutique guitar builders have a correlation. Let's go a little deeper here. Could the new underground start to be created because of these issues? In both the film and in the guitar industry via indie filmmakers and boutique guitar makers. That's why I opened up talking about Novo. In movies, indie creators and streaming platforms are where innovation is happening. Everything, Everywhere at Once, The Whale, and other low-budget hits show that original content still thrives. I watch a TV show. I watched the American version of the TV show Ghost, and now I've started to go through the BBC version, the original version of that TV show, and that's low budget. That does not cost a lot to produce, and yet it's one of the hit shows, and they're getting season after season getting renewed. Whereas you take a big budget Marvel production like She-Hulk, and that thing was so bad sometimes I wanted to tear my eyeballs out. Talk about hate watching. And again, soulless, cash grab. And that cost millions. That, I think, what did I read somewhere where they were doing like $50 million an episode or something like that? And certainly, that just didn't pay out in the end, did it? But these low budget features, like I said, Ghosts, they're doing fine. They get renewed. Amazing how they're getting renewed and She-Hulk didn't, for example. Just an example. In guitars, boutique builders Importers like me, made in Japan, made in Mexico, made in China, and independent brands are really starting to step up out there. Companies like Eastman, Heritage, Novo, and high-end made in Japan guitars are filling the innovation gap. Some of the Japanese companies are doing a lot of innovations. And at the very least, they're retaining the basic features that people want: a rosewood fretboard, a nice piece of maple top on it, not a veneer, all those things, yet keeping the prices to, non-nosebleed levels. I would rather have, you know, anyway, let me not digress. But players are increasingly going for quality and value. So glad. That is, as you know, the motto of this channel is I'm good, and part of I'm good is I'm good because I have quality and value going for me. They're not just going for the logo. The logos can be misleading. Just because it says Star Wars on it doesn't mean it's going to be a great movie. If you don't believe me, watch that Obi-Wan series and tell me that you find that to be anywhere, of near. It's not even made for cable quality. It's almost as bad as, the Ewok Christmas special. So people are increasingly looking for quality and value in their entertainment as well. Now, smaller brands are able to do what the big companies refuse to do because smaller teams, more freedom to innovate. In the movie industry, you've got, just like in the record industry, you've got the top guys saying, no, we think you should. How did Marvin Gaye put it? Marvin Gaye said, it's as if guys came to Picasso and said, Picasso, we really like this painting, but, could we change, the ear over there a little bit, or. And so you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And because smaller teams don't, there's less bureaucracy and there's no need to cater to investors. There's a greater focus on to what real players' needs are, not just nostalgia. It's so funny to me. When I was writing that line, I was thinking about, again, Leo Fender. And he and his design team there, they would call in musicians. As a matter of fact, part of his design team were musicians. They were real musicians, gigging musicians, touring musicians. And the innovations that they came up with their guitars at that time was because of their collaborations with real musicians. Hey, how does this? Well, the Telecaster, it's got these kind of limitations on it. Well, let's do something with the contour of the body and call it the Stratocaster. This is through discussions with real musicians, what they liked, what they worked with it out on the road, and what didn't. And they've thrown that tradition away. If they could have retained their greater focus on real player needs, there would have been innovation, not just nostalgia. So, will indie guitar builders follow the same trajectory as indie films, building a dedicated, passionate audience? I certainly do hope so. I really do hope so. Mama says, my neighbor just had a baby. Shout out little Elizabeth. Little Elizabeth, God bless you. Welcome to the world. Welcome. Shout out to you, little baby Elizabeth. So, are we in the end of, the big companies, the big companies coming to an end of an era here? Hollywood is scrambling to understand why people aren't showing up, even getting to the point where they're blaming the audience for showing up, calling them racist and sexist and cheap. Studios are blaming the audience instead of recognizing the need for change. Could Fender and Gibson and the big brands face the same problem in the next 5 to 10 years? I think it's highly likely. There is a shift coming, and people are going direct to consumer. Reverb, YouTube, small builders, those are all the same thing. And they cross over into different industries. More guitarists are buying used, modding their own gear, or some more, or supporting smaller builders. You know, and these approaches are prudent, considering the fact that just like buying a car on a lot, the minute you walk out with that new guitar out of wherever you got it from, whether you bought it online and got a great deal or not, it's still there's a devaluation there for the most part. Are AI and indie creators and smaller brands the future of entertainment and music gear? AI and digital tools reduce cost and making production more accessible. And because of this, do younger players really care about brands? You know, and what would it take to make people really excited about a guitar release these days? The last time that I saw people excited about a guitar release were the Epiphone. What is that? The B. I can't. Gosh, just terrible that I can't think of the guitar. Somebody help me out here. The Vela B's guitar. And that was the last big thing. And the thing before that, the Epiphone was kind of on a roll there for a minute. They had the 59 that people were really excited about. And then they had the Vela B's. They were on a roll there, but that's just kind of puttered out. And I think, like I said, a lot of the first 59 owners were pissed off that they came out with that second one. You know, kind of negated the first, which, by the way, was never a limited edition, even though it had limited edition on the back, you know. You know, it's like stamping "May contain chocolate" on a rock. It doesn't. What's the difference between stamping "May contain chocolate" on a rock and limited edition on some of these Epiphones? Not a lot of difference. So, you know, the entertainment and guitar industries are both at a crossroads. They are, for different reasons, but for similar reasons as well. There are external forces that are affecting their bottom lines. We see that Fender and Gibson are shifting into the lifestyle brand arena at a time when consumers aren't spending that kind of money on that kind of crap, so that may have been too little too late. Major companies are relying on too much nostalgia. Independent creators are offering fresh, player-driven alternatives. We see that on YouTube, regardless of what table. I always say YouTube is like a high school cafeteria. You've got the jocks, you know, the musicians, the whatever. But in our case, you got the golf club channel, you got the guys who are into comic books, and all those different tables. And of course, that's the guitar gearhead guys. And these are the places, as I pointed out from the article I read, that the younger generation are gravitating towards. And the rise of the DIY culture and direct-to-consumer models are what's driving that. I am going to put out even if there's 50 treble bleed videos out there. I'm going to put one out there because I don't know if some young guy's going to see that, and that's going to be the one that's going to make him say, hey, you know what, that kind of makes sense to me. I want to do that. And that encourages DIY. And that's something that if I inspire one person to do, then I'm doing what the real reason, because it ain't about money. Trust me, this channel is not generating any kind of significant money. But it really is with the hope of taking my time, spending my time to inspire. And if somebody, you know, vibes to that, then that's payment enough, honestly. But a lot of people are going in that direction. Will Fender and Gibson adapt, or will they have their own Snow White moment? Fortunately, they don't have Richard Zeckler promoting their instruments, because that would definitely bury it. Fender's endless American Pro 2 updates. Where's the real innovation in those? Gibson's Murphy Lab aging, charging thousands for artificial wear instead of meaningful advancements. Why aren't they working on improving the dyes that they use so that they either you can make it so that in time it'll wear faster or it won't wear at all, so that you get that's a buying option. I want a finish that will wear down fast and look more, as opposed to a finish that will make it look it last forever, but there's still nitro. We're not talking about poly. Where's that innovation with the Murphy Lab? Compare this to brands like Novo, which are building new designs that still respect the classics but push the boundaries. It's one of the reasons I like them. I kind of like those guitars. I still think they're expensive as hell, but you know what? Sometimes they might actually be worth it. There may actually be value there. Are we finally able to start to move on from the big players? We really need to try to understand that there may be a general wave of, how can I put this? There may be a concentrated effort in all these industries to do things. And I think that's why there's a lot of rhyming with them. If it's something that is not in the consumer's benefit, then I'm quite sure that is the case. By you, sir, Mr. Please, a careful reaction to the fingerstyle guitarist Alif Batan in a YouTube video from Indonesia, rock world music musicians. Well, I will take a look and enter that into the search and see if it comes up. I appreciate you mentioning it here. I'm sure other people as well. I have a cover, Sweet Child of Mine. My Heart Will Go On, The Godfather. Okay, man, I got you. We will take a look. Thank you so much for showing up. But this is cool. We didn't have, even this we didn't have before. Somebody could come onto a live stream like this and promote music, And since I'm about that, I don't discourage that. That's a fine thing, But when I was growing up, we didn't have this. You wanted to promote music, you had to record it on a cassette somehow and pass it around. Oh, I miss the days of physical media. I think that's where the corporations went wrong as well. I think it's where all the industries went wrong is taking that power, that money, and shifting it to other companies' hands by giving up their monopoly on physical media. But I digress. So, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Like George Lucas said when I started this live stream out, playing you that clip. It's like poetry. They rhyme. The issues that we're seeing in the guitar industry are quite mirroring, as I've demonstrated, I think, very nicely here tonight. Well done. What's going on? This wasn't just clickbaity. There was actual, a real thought behind tonight's title. And it's really to show you the weirdness of how I can take those two things, and put them together. But that's, I'm a weird person, I guess. Weird thinking. But certainly, we are seeing that this cannot continue, and that the consumer is becoming more hip, especially the younger generation. They're exposed to more media, more exposure to vlogs and to chats and to different social media outlets that get them a little bit more informed than I was when I was their age, to be frank. And so some of the old tricks up their sleeves that these corporations pull may not be as viable as they think they are anymore. Case in point, doing a live remake of Snow White, rewriting the story in ways that weren't positive, race swapping the lead, counseling out little people because of reasons, and basically just making a crap fest out of the whole thing. And uh, the parallels that I established between the movie industry and the guitar industry, again, we're seeing a crap fest. We, you know, people are trying to memory hold it, but I still will remind you that that Mark from Gibson came out and basically threatened everybody. And to be frank from you, that's no different than the lead actress from the Snow White movie coming out doing the same thing. There's a parallel for you as well. You know, that got people upset and caused them PR issues that they had to backtrack on that. Sound familiar, guys? Like I said, there is a playbook that is being played here, and sometimes, you know, the coincidences, in my opinion, like I said, like, who said that? Like Commissioner Gordon said, you know, you're a detective now, you know, to the soon to be Robin, you're a detective now, you're not allowed to believe in coincidences. And the older that I get and I see these things, you know, I think to myself, that's interesting. It's something that I put into what I call my file. That's interesting. Doesn't go in the circular file like a lot of things do, but it goes into my file. And this is definitely one of those. Yeah, that's a great parallel. Mark, from getting up there and saying play original, is no different than Richard Zegler and some of the things that she said, in her social media posts that offended people, upset people, and turned them off from the product. The exact opposite of what they were trying to do or supposed to be doing. They went off script. Need to get back on the script. Or their script was off. Either way. So there are parallels there. And I just think that it is paramount for the consumer these days, because there's no excuse to not be informed, to get the information about anything that you consume, buy, purchase, or watch before you do so. And, it may alter your choices. And as a result of those altered choices, it may alter the thinking of some of the producers of these movies and guitars. Just a thought. Just a thought. I'd like to hear your comments below about what you guys think about the state of the guitar industry now, and where do you think it's going. And I'd like to take a moment to say that I do appreciate all of you guys watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. I see 7 likes and a few people more than that watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. It's really important. Super important to the YouTube algorithm. Hit those likes, guys. Hit those likes. Hit those likes. Thank you so much. And I hope that you got something out of this, because I didn't want this to be a tenuous, kind of jumping on the bandwagon. Well, a little bit, but not really. There was actually some meat to this bone here. About tying in these two industries, seemingly completely different ones, but seeing that there's so many parallels there in the makeup of their failings, that it again, like I said, it can't be just casually excused away. There seems to be a general playbook in both cases there. I leave that up to you to determine how deep or how surface that actually is. But there is a tie-in here. The title of this tonight is the subtitle. This was it's like George Lucas says, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Hollywood Snow White flop in the modern guitar industry. It's like poetry. They rhyme. They rhyme. And I find that to be fascinating. I really do. Spooky. But I kind of like spooky a little bit, so I find those things fascinating. And as I was writing the script and just thinking about it, the parallels just kept, even as I'm sitting here speaking to you live, the parallels are still coming up, So, interesting. Which coffee is great coffee? Well, I'll tell you, it's not Starbucks. I had a Starbucks here across the street for years. Then I was walking my dog today and I noticed that it disappeared, like literally overnight. Like yesterday, there was a thriving Starbucks. This morning, it was not a stick of furniture inside of there, tape on the window, completely lights out. It was the weirdest freaking thing. They shut that shop down overnight. Overnight. That blew my mind. Not that we need any Starbucks, especially in a city like this. There's far better coffee for far cheaper here. Um, First decent cup of coffee I ever had in my life was here in Amsterdam about 25 years ago. But that's another story. See, you got me talking about coffee by you, sir. Not good. I'm supposed to be talking about Snow White and guitars. But I think I covered that, guys. I think that I made some points there. I would certainly like to hear down in the comments section what you guys think about tonight's live stream and this topic, this tie-in. Again, like I said, it is not a tenuous thought. There actually are connections there, as I've pointed out. Made a very good case for. And I think that it's, again, food for thought. We can begin. We can invite some cats over from the film table over to our table and have discussion and say, hey, wait a minute, that sounds familiar, and I think that's something that's healthy because an informed consumer is a wise consumer, is going to make good choices. So a little bit of a different thing tonight on this live stream tonight. But different is good. I like to keep it fresh and relevant. I think this topic tonight and tying these two subjects together, since it is the talk of the town this week, and then next week will be something else. But at least to show you that there's some deeper things going on there, and something that you might or might not want to look into a little bit deeper. But certainly tonight we did dig into it a bit. I want to thank you guys, as always, for showing up and for supporting this channel. I never asked for PayPal. I never asked for super chats or anything like that, because I really do this out of giving back. I had so many people when I was a young, growing up producer in Los Angeles who helped me out without asking really very much in return, that I really feel that this YouTube channel was created in order to pay that back, pay that forward. One thing I do ask is that you go to my Asanoki Bandcamp page. So go to bandcamp.com and look at my Asanoki page, A-S-A-N-O-K-I, Asanoki, and take a look at some of the music that I have for sale. My music sales are slowing down a little bit. I am working on some new music, actually, as we speak here. But hey, Tommy, how you doing? I really do appreciate you showing up. Better late than never, I always say. Except for surprise parties. But I do hope that you do watch this and rewind. I think you're going to find it interesting. But go check out the music on Bandcamp. Mike McWims, you can also look me up. And support this channel by buying a single, buying a record, doing those things. It really does keep this going. And does another thing that I aspire to do is to get my music out there and well known. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Seamus. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Maddie Two Hats always dropping is a cool thing. I appreciate you, all of you guys, just always showing up and supporting this channel. You guys are always here, and as a result of that, I aspire to always be here for you as well, God willing. Guys, take care. I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.